todos! Hi everyone, my name is Elena and welcome to my little cooking show where I put a healthy twist on a Latin American dish. So today I'm going to be making a dish that's pretty representative of my background. I'm going to be combining yuca from my birth country of Brazil with chimichurri sauce, which is from my home country of Uruguay. So a lot of you might be wondering what yuca is. Yuca is a fibrous root that is found in many countries in Latin America, but it is super widely popular in Brazil specifically, which is why I have come to love it as well. My mom used to make me yuca all the time when I lived there and continued to make it for me when we moved to the United States. So I love this recipe. I also love yuca because it's super fibrous and there's a lot of different ways that you can make it. You can mash it, you can fry it, you can bake it, you can turn it into a pizza crust, you can turn it into a flour. A lot of you might be familiar with cassava flour. Well, that is yuca. So enough of me talking about yuca. Now it is time to teach you how to make this awesome dish. The first thing that we're gonna do is boil around 8 cups of water. You want to make sure that after you peel the yuca and you cut it up, which I'm going to show you how to do, that the yuca is completely submerged in the water. So I'm doing about 8 cups because I'm doing 1 large root, but if you want to put more, you can do more. It's very easy. And now we're just going to set the water to boil while we peel and cut up our yuca. We're going to peel the yuca, and the reason I'm peeling in a bowl is first of all to keep the kitchen clean, but also because usually when I'm peeling potatoes or sweet potatoes, I love to keep the peel and air fry them or bake them and make them super crispy and add them as a garnish to a salad or a sandwich. But for yuca, the peel is actually not edible. So I'm gonna peel it in the bowl and then it's going straight to the trash. So now comes my favorite part of the recipe, which is actually cutting up the yuca. Like I said before, yuca is a pretty tough root. That's why we are actually boiling it before we bake it or air fry it or fry it, so it can soften a little bit. Something to keep in mind when cutting up the yuca is to really think about how you like your fries. Do you like them thin and crispy, or do you like them a little thicker? That is something that is going to help you when cutting your yuca and knowing what size you'd like to cut and how thick or thin you would like to cut it. So once you have your yuca cut up, you're gonna place it into the boiling water for around 8 to 10 minutes. Something to keep in mind is that those 8 to 10 minutes vary depending on how you cut up the yuca. So just know that you should keep an eye on them, and once they're fork tender, they're ready to drain. While the yuca is boiling, we are gonna start with the chimichurri. Chimichurri is an emblem in Uruguay. It is very common to find it on every restaurant table that you go to. It's eaten with any kind of protein, crackers, put on salads, pizzas. It's an amazing condiment and I'm really excited to show all of you how I make it. The main ingredient in chimichurri is parsley. So what we're gonna do first is we're gonna take about half a bunch and we are going to rinse it before chopping it up. Now what we're gonna do is we're gonna chop up the parsley. What I always like to do first is kind of get rid of the stems because they're definitely a lot more bitter than the leaves. I will say, when I first started cooking with parsley, I used to sit there and take each leaf off one by one. But the great thing about this recipe is that you can keep some of the stem at the top. There's no need to really just be removing them one by one. The alarm just went off, so we're gonna put a pause on the chimichurri and go check out the yuca. Let's see, we're gonna get a fork and test it out. Ooh, look at that, fork tender, ready to drain. So while the yuca is cooling, we're gonna come back to the chimichurri recipe. As you can see here, I've already chopped up all of the fresh parsley. So we're just gonna put it into a large bowl. And the next thing that we're gonna chop up is 1 small chili. I always like to start with 1. You can do 2 if you'd like. I start with 1, I taste the chimichurri, and if I think it needs that extra kick, then I continue to add a second one. So it really just depends, and this is something that I always like to talk about when I'm cooking with my friends or my family, is the importance of tasting a recipe as you cook it and adjusting it according to your preferences. Everyone's preferences are different, and I think what really makes a chef is knowing what they like and knowing that the person next to you might not like the same thing, and that's okay. Just make sure to taste it as you go and add a second one if you'd like. So the next step in the chimichurri would be garlic. You're gonna chop up some garlic. I like to start with 2 cloves, but again, taste the chimichurri and see if you'd like to add a 3rd one. So here I have some chopped up garlic. We're just gonna add it to the bowl before adding the rest of our ingredients. So now we're gonna add about a teaspoon of dried oregano, so very little, as well as a teaspoon of sea salt and a teaspoon of, we keep going, a teaspoon of pepper. The last ingredient that I add before adding the liquids is actually my grandmother's secret to her chimichurri. In Uruguay, we call this leaf laurel, but in the US, it's known as a bay leaf. So even though we're not gonna chop it up, you're just gonna put it in whole into the bowl before adding the olive oil and the red wine vinegar, and just let the bay leaf really seep in with the other flavors to make an amazing chimichurri. So the last thing to do with your chimichurri is to just allow it to really sit and take in all of these spices and just allow it to sit for about 30 minutes to an hour before serving it. So while the chimichurri is sitting and allowing the flavors to release into the oil, we are going to prepare the yuca. So the yuca fries have cooled down. We're gonna put a little bit of olive oil as well as some salt. And I kind of get dirty with this and use my hands because I don't mind. So we're just gonna make sure they really get coated into the oil. We're gonna top it off with a little bit of salt and bake it. As I previously mentioned, there's many different ways to cook the yuca. You can fry it, like we did in culinary school. You can bake it, like my grandmother does and my mother does. Or you can do what I do, which is I love to air fry the yuca. In college, my roommates and I lived off of our air fryer. Absolutely lived off of it. So that's how I'm gonna do it because it's my favorite way. But like I said, there's 3 different types of ways of doing it and all of them turn out to be delicious. So what you're gonna do is you're gonna air fry it at 400 for about 15 minutes. If you decide to bake it in the oven, you're gonna bake it at 425 for around 35 to 40 minutes. So now that the chimichurri has been sitting for a while, I'm gonna taste it and see if I need to add any more seasoning to it. It's perfect. Now the yuca fries are ready and the chimichurri is ready, we're gonna top it up. Just a little over. The great thing about this recipe too is that you can add more toppings and make them loaded yuca fries. You can add some proteins, other veggies. There's a lot of different ways of serving. Like this. Add some garnish. Thank you all so much for cooking with me today. Salud! So good. Are you good? My sous chef!
My sous chef, Papi! Papi! You like the yuca. You like the yuca, don't you, Papi?
She wants to cook with us.